you. Well, it's great to be here and have the chance to talk about this project that many of us at the university have been working on for a while now. So here's where the University of Utah is located, right at this edge of this urban wildland interface. And we happen to be fortunate enough to have a waterway that passes through our campus with Red Butte Creek, with its headwaters in the protected mountain watershed, and then coming down into the campus. And the first thing it encounters as it enters this corridor is the university. Just upstream, we have the Red Butte Research Natural Area, which we think is a pretty neat opportunity, and a lot of great research is going on up there about ecology, water, climate change, environmental change, and human interactions with the environment. And so we're working on trying to understand very holistically kind of what's going on in this watershed, and there are many faculty and students from across the university, several who are here today, and trying to understand how sort of natural processes are occurring, but then also how humans are intersecting some of those processes. As we get down into the campus stretch of Red Butte, we see that, it's less than ideal. There's a lot of sort of severe incision, erosion, water quality and quantity issues, and really opportunities to improve the way we're managing and interacting with this creek. This is last spring during a flashy flood stage. Red Butte, like many of the creeks coming through this area, has a lot of discharge during storms and then fairly low flow during those intermediate times. This is a brave kayaker actually braving the waters of Red Butte during a storm. But you can see that flow does get quite high. And up at the university, we really don't have a great history of the way we're engaging with the community with this creek. Most of the people in the community know about Red Butte because of the oil spill. There's homeless encampments and issues with land use and access along the creek. And so we're really trying to rethink the way we act as stewards of this land and how we can bring this into the university mission. And so over the last couple of years, really as what began as a student-led effort, we've been working to try to bring this into a big part of what the university is doing, both physically and academically. We recently proposed to the Board of Trustees to have a setback and a riparian corridor recognized in the campus master plan, and that's moving forward, but also thinking about all of the flows into the creek, since it's more than just this corridor. It's everywhere that water flows that comes out into those storm drains. And so thinking about our land use and practices around the campus and how that impacts this creek. And so looking at this as you come out of the mountains and onto campus, one of the first large properties you encounter is the Williams building right here. What you see is this huge footprint of turf grass, right, adjacent to the creek. And so we've been working on a project to reimagine what this can be. And before we go into the details of that, I was going to show a quick video if I can figure out. Where's our tech helper person? Well, we'll just see if I can do it. Showing? All right. So I'll just play this and let it speak for itself. The presence of Red Butte Creek on this campus is very unique. It's an amazing opportunity, right? We have the headwaters here in the Wasatch Mountains, and the first thing it encounters as it comes into the city is the University of Utah. And for the most part, historically, has been ignored.
Here is a big asset to the university, and what are you doing to it? You're fencing it off, it's overgrown, nobody really knows it's there, it's really not in great shape. We could do better. The Red Butte Creek offers us an opportunity to do real-time research on a really important urban stream and to show what might be possible when we think about how we could manage that urban stream environment.
So the iUtah project brings together ecologists, biologists, atmospheric scientists, people from all different academic institutions, working together on the same kinds of questions, trying to understand water resources in Utah.
We're interested in trying to restore a more natural relationship of Red Butte Creek with its surrounding watershed.
I've been working on a mammal camera trapping project along Red Butte Creek for about 3.5 years now. And these camera traps are motion-activated cameras, so you can set them up in the forest on a tree, and when an animal walks by, it'll take a series of photos. And what that means is, of course those photos are great to look at, but that's data, right? That's information about what species is there, what time of day, what time of year, how many individuals of that species, and it really helps paint a really good picture of what's out there.
Here at Red Butte, what we do is we are trying to catalog anything that has cultural significance. So whether it happened in prehistory or in historical times, so meaning not that long ago, about 50 years ago to thousands of years ago, we just want to document what has happened in this canyon.
So GAMUT is an acronym, stands for Gradients Along Mountain to Urban Transitions. And it is a network of sensors that runs from the headwaters of Red Butte Creek all the way down to the Jordan River. The idea with this network is to capture changes as we move from sort of undisturbed upland ecosystems down through into the urban environment.
What we often try to achieve is to show that the university can be an example. We can serve as a model for the community as to what is possible in sustainability.
Our involvement in Red Butte Creek is important because, this is in our backyard.
And it's really, this lifeline that can connect the whole community.
This has maintained activity by people since we've been here.
We've spent the last couple of years trying to really bring it into the university's mission.
The more that we learn, the better decisions that we'll make in the future to preserve this creek.
I think there's something that everyone can do to contribute to the efforts around revitalizing Red Butte Creek. It's not an unlimited resource, and how are we valuing our natural environments, and what are we teaching our children about how they engage with the environment.
Am I live? Yes, you can hear me. Okay, of course I'm live. Okay, I'm just going to close that.
With the Fortis Education
No. And here we are. Okay. And the view that we want, hold on, she's going to get it. Nothing like a smooth transition. So, as Brenda was talking about, the university has really started to think about changing its relationship with Red Butte Creek. But thus far, it has been so a lot of talking, a lot of conversations, some planning, some policies getting set in place, but there hasn't been a lot of physical change. And so far, there hasn't actually been a lot of institutional change either. And what we needed to really go forward was a demonstration project. And the Williams Building property is our opportunity to demonstrate what we're talking about this new relationship. And so it's an opportunity to demonstrate not just a physical manifestation, but a different way of doing things. So it's both about process and about making physical change in the watershed. So what we want to talk to you about today is the project at this property, at the Williams Building property, is called the Landscape Lab. And it is an opportunity to take this many acres of immaculate and very well-watered turf grass and reimagine that landscape into something that, well, we don't want to call it ecological restoration because we don't think it's practical to try to return it to whatever was there because people use this place, right? But we call it ecological revitalization. So we want to return ecological function, ecological diversity, and a more natural hydrologic function to this property as a demonstration and a test site for what could happen in more of the watershed. So here is a close-up view. So if you get right down to the site, this is the experience of looking at the Williams Building. And again, we're trying to build this into the University of Utah mission. And the University of Utah's mission is teaching, research, and public life. Public life means having the conversation we're having right now. It means engaging the community. So how can we translate our our revitalization of this site into the University of Utah's mission. To do this, we went through a participatory design process. So some design needed to happen, and we needed professionals, professional designers to guide that process, but it was a very participatory design process. It involved research faculty from many different disciplines across the university. It involved university administration and facilities management, so the people who actually are in charge of this site, and community stakeholders. So that what comes to be in this place is something that is meaningful and helpful to all of these different stakeholders. And so we were translating through this participatory process the university mission into a landscape following the principles of revitalization. So our goals for the project design ended up being connecting. So connecting people, both the people in the campus community, but in the broader community as well, to Red Butte Creek and to this landscape. At the moment, people have almost no access to Red Butte Creek on the University of Utah campus. It's actually very dangerous to try to get access to it. And the site itself, with all that turf grass, is not, feet rarely set foot on that turf grass. So how can we reconnect people with this place? Education, how can we build in educational opportunities for our students and for students who aren't necessarily students of the university? And how can we enliven it through intellectual inquiry? So how can we build research questions, research thinking into the landscape that we build, so that whatever we build, we're learning from? So as we went through this process, we are testing a bunch of different research questions, or at least, or creating opportunities to test research questions that maybe we haven't thought of yet. So it is becoming, in addition to a new landscape that people will want to visit and spend time in, and an educational facility that courses will come and educators will come and bring their students to. It is also a research facility where we have research questions associated with water, people, and plants and animals, and how they are all interacting with this landscape. So some of the research questions, and what these slides show is a brainstorming of research questions. So, and we did a lot of this. There was a lot of brainstorming of what are the issues at this place, at this time, and what do we actually have the opportunity to learn about as we re-landscape the Williams Building property? So there were a lot of research questions associated with water, because this project is embedded in a watershed way of thinking. So we're interested, one of the central questions we're interested in is, can we use water more wisely on this landscape to maintain a landscape that is beautiful? So everyone is concerned that as you go towards a more natural landscape here in Utah, you will get something that's very dry and brown. And so can we use our water from this site more wisely to maintain something that's beautiful, that people want to be out in and interacting with? And then conversely, there's the question of how can we manage water more wisely so that we're not sending flash floods into Red Butte Creek and eroding it every time it rains heavily. So there's this dual goal that we think we can probably achieve through really thinking hard about water management. There are other questions that have to do with pollutants. and to what extent can we treat pollutants in the runoff before it gets into the creek or into the groundwater, and how do we do that? What are the best techniques? Okay, Joe says hurry up. So we have the opportunity at the site to test different designs of bioretention strategies. So we can find the ones that work best for this site. We can basically look at how the building and the other infrastructure on the site has altered drainage. How do we restore that? Research questions associated with people are just how does our design affect the way people interact with their environment? And can we provide something that's really an amenity for them? And so there are design elements that have to do with access and people moving through and within the site. So I need to go really fast now because I need to leave time for Laura. And then we have the opportunity to look at how plants and animals use this site and how do we promote healthy habitat for the other creatures that might be using this location. So quickly, some of the research design features that we're building in, which you may not see because it just looks like a landscape, are areas of designed experiments where we have replication of different features. Sorry, this wasn't what I remembered this slide having on it. So we have replicated plots. We have a lot of baseline data already being collected on things like biodiversity, soil characteristics, water runoff. We have an area of little test plots where people can be testing something, again, in an experimental fashion at a finer scale. And again, this built-in structure of being able to collect data, but also an opportunity for future researchers to come in and study things that maybe we hadn't already thought of. So I will shut up and let Laura talk.
Hi. So for some design inspiration, as we approached this project, we looked to Wallace Stegner, who always is inspiring when it comes to Western landscapes. And what this really came down to is that you have to quit associating beauty with lawns, right? That we don't necessarily have to get completely over the color green, but we do have to reinterpret it. So essentially, in this country, not just Utah, but throughout the country, we've really imported a landscape that actually goes back to 18th century England. And it's really a landscape of power and essentially think Downton Abbey. Because we've prized this landscape for so many reasons, which is an entirely other conversation, sometimes we don't see what we do have here. And so really what we thought what we could bring in terms of design and restoring health and beauty or revitalizing this site and making it a more beautiful place was to understand what's possible versus what's perceived. I think often because, again, we think of lawns as being sort of the driver of what a landscape should be. We assume that if we're not going to have lawn, we're going to have this, right? That this is xeriscape, this is what it means to use little or no water, right? When in fact, as landscape architects, working with ecologists, we understand that their plants can have an entire range of function and provide ecosystem services while also being beautiful and creating spaces that are habitable. So for one of the things we worked on, I went too fast. Can I go back? So we looked at a plant palette with no supplemental irrigation, low irrigation, and moderate irrigation. Again, trying to design zones with these plants, because we understand that ultimately, for this project to be successful and for people to begin really having a different kind of relationship with Red Butte Creek, they need to perceive the landscape around it as beautiful and as an inviting place. We're also building in, again, that systems approach to landscape. So we really wanted to try and capture, to the best the extent possible, ecological processes and really create a landscape that, to me, right now, as the Williams building, the first time I saw the Williams building, I thought, it looks like a mausoleum. It's not a living landscape. There are not really functional ecological processes happening there to any great degree, right? And so, again, that we're working with process, we're working with systems. And so there's a proposed parking lot going in right by the Williams building, and this meadow landscape is also a landscape of transition where people walk into the building from across the street to go into the cafeteria. And so you can see in the bottom there the existing landscape. So what we're proposing to do is to create a system of bioswales, essentially, that will be visible, but also have some kind of educational signage to explain to people so that we hope that it'll be visible both through the design itself as well as through signage and other educational opportunities, that people will understand that what we're doing here is actually treating we have about 2 acres of roof that we're working with, and so, in addition to the parking surfaces, and so that we're going to be treating that stormwater runoff, which right now is being piped and directly into the creek and is blowing out the banks. So with that, I'll just leave you with, this was our first kind of look at the design along the creek, but ultimately the plan is to have a bridge that will connect across the creek to Cottom's Grove on the other side. And this will allow people to have visual access to the creek and to really experience the creek in a very different way, and begin to hopefully, begin that process of integrating the creek into the life of the campus.
Do we have any questions? I thought that was a great presentation, really interesting, at least from my perspective as a landscape architect. No questions? Nope, everybody's wanting to. Yes, we do have one.
Yeah, you should.
As a pseudo administrator. So the question was, how are we dealing with the costs associated with this? So right now there are substantial water use costs associated with watering that lawn, and there's also the building maintenance fees. And so we're working with real estate management. They had this building slated to sort of be revitalized at this time, and so if we can demonstrate that what we're doing is actually going to lower the water use costs, we can then use that as part of our budget. And so we do have a budget to work with to do at least the initial phases, but we are certainly applying for additional funding and looking for opportunities to build out additional phases to make it a bigger, more lively and research-focused thing. To do good research, then you need funds for people and analyses and things like that. So there's always opportunities for more, but we do have a budget from the university to at least get started.
I guess just one more question in the back. Yes.
Absolutely. They've been engaged in a lot of the initial planning meetings. We've had steering committee meetings and planning meetings, and have talked to them about this possibility of a bridge over into where they're building a new horticulture facility, and it would link up with trails going through there, and eventually perhaps link up to the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, so be this conduit through the university to connect the community up there. So yeah, they're actively involved in the process.
Well, great. Well, if you have more questions, I think we'll hold it from now. You can come up and ask our team here afterwards, so we don't hold everyone up. But one last thing I wanted to do was to hand the microphone over to Lynn Burney, who has really been kind of instrumental in organizing this whole thing. Just had a few closing comments, I think, for the conference. So,
thank you. Hi, everybody. With that, we are concluding the 10th annual Watershed Symposium. And I am with Salt Lake County Watershed Planning and Restoration, and as the host of this event, we really thank you for all your continued support, and I'm glad to see so many people here till the bitter end. Thank you for staying, and please give feedback if you haven't. I'm sure you've heard that reminded, all throughout the symposium. Give feedback, survey comments to all the presenters. You can find links to the surveys on our website, and also we have a sort of like an overall symposium survey, so if you haven't seen that on the website, take a look for it, and I'll be following up with an email to everyone to kind of remind you to give us your comments, because we love feedback and we're always trying to improve this event. And that's it. So thank you, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you.